Check out this map because this tiny speck of land is the ultimate kill switch for the entire Iranian economy. We're talking about Kharg Island. It's only about 7.5 square miles, but it handles a staggering 94% of their crude oil exports. Imagine having one single point of failure that controls 9 out of 10 tankers leaving your country. If this island is seized or neutralized, the regime's bankroll vanishes overnight. No more funding for drone production, no more payroll for the security forces, and definitely no more nuclear ambitions. The strategy here isn't to level the place, it's to take it intact. If you control the oil, you control the country's heartbeat without having to occupy the mainland. It's a surgical economic strike that forces a regime to its knees without a massive troop surge. It's honestly genius from a logistical standpoint, finding the one thread that, when pulled, unravels the entire sweater.
If you have to show an ID for almost everything in this country. Show an ID to vote. You have to make sure you're a U.S. citizen to register to vote. So I'm going to do everything I can.
What's holding it up? Because I agree with you, and most Americans do. 85% of Americans believe, yeah, we should have proof of citizenship before we vote. So what's holding it up then in the Senate?
One of three things. You either got to get to 60 votes. We don't have them yet. We only have 50. Number two, you got to add it to a must-pass bill. And number three, we got to do the talking filibuster. So we've got to do one of those three things to get this passed. The public wants this done. On top of Donald Trump wanting this done, the public wants this done. Every Republican, Democrat, and Independent needs to make sure they go vote for this. I ask everybody, call your senator.
Take a close look at the strategy Rick Scott is laying out here, because this is how the game is played in the Senate. He's highlighting an 85-15 issue, meaning 85% of Americans want this Save America Act passed, but there's a massive gap in the Senate. The three-step plan he's talking about, getting to 60 votes, attaching it to a must-pass bill, or invoking the talking filibuster, is high-stakes political chess. The most interesting part is the talking filibuster. That's the nuclear option that forces everyone to stand on the floor and actually debate. It strips away the ability for leadership to hide behind procedural hurdles. When you have this much public pressure combined with a war footing, the excuses for not securing the border or the elections start to evaporate. It's a rare moment where the voice of the people has a direct legislative path if they can just break that 50-vote deadlock.
In The Guardian, again, 40 years ago, that one day he says he will win back respect for America on the world stage, saying that Iran's been beating us psychologically, making us look like a bunch of fools. One bullet shot at one of our men or ships, and I'd do a number on Kharg Island. I'd go in and take it. That's what Trump said.
This is absolutely surreal. Look at the date on that transcript, 1988. Nearly 40 years ago, long before he was ever in politics, Trump was already calling out Kharg Island as the specific number he would do on Iran. He literally said back then that if they shot at one of our men or ships, he'd go in and take that island. It's like he's been playing the same long game for 4 decades. Seeing a prediction from 40 years ago align perfectly with current military operations is the kind of detail that usually stays buried in the archives. It shows a consistent mindset regarding global leverage and peace through strength. Most people change their entire worldview every few years, but this strategy has been sitting in his playbook since the 80s. It's wild to think the exit strategy for the current conflict was actually mapped out before most of the soldiers involved were even born.
Deal with Iran except unconditional surrender. What does that look like? Unconditional surrender? How will you know it's real?
It means we're fighting to win. It means we set the terms. We'll know when they're not capable of fighting. There'll be a point where they'll have no choice but to do that. But whether they know it or not, they will be combat ineffective. They will surrender.
Typically, the understanding of a surrender is person to person. Is that what we were?
Pay attention to how the definition of victory is being shifted here. When you hear the term unconditional surrender, most people think of a formal signing on a battleship. But look at what's being described. Combat ineffective. That means the regime doesn't even have to admit they lost for the war to be over. If they can't communicate, can't fly, and can't move oil, they are effectively a ghost government. It's a fascinating way to handle a proud regime that would rather burn everything down than publicly surrender. By setting the terms so that the U.S. decides when the enemy is done, it removes the enemy's power to drag out the conflict. You don't need a signature. You just need to ensure they physically cannot pull a trigger or launch a missile. It's a pragmatic, cold-blooded approach to ending a war that acknowledges pride usually gets in the way of peace. Did you hear that list? No Navy, no communications, and no Air Force left. In just 10 days, the entire sophisticated military apparatus of a regional power has been reduced to almost zero. This is a level of dominance that we haven't seen in modern warfare. Usually these things drag on for months, but the focus on nodes rather than territory has accelerated the collapse. When you take out the eyes and ears, the comms, the rest of the body just flails. It's a masterclass in modern electronic and aerial warfare. The regime is essentially flying blind and shouting into the void. Without an air force to defend their skies, they are completely exposed, which leads right back to the Kharg Island strategy we saw earlier. The pieces are all clicking into place for a very rapid conclusion to this chapter of the conflict. Things are moving faster than the news can keep up with. Make sure you hit that follow button so you don't miss the next breakdown. Catch you in the next one.